There is something deeply human about our fascination with the past. We are drawn to old places, silent witnesses to lives lived and lost. These haunted houses hold stories of joy, sorrow, and sometimes terror. We walk their halls, feeling the weight of history, wondering if a piece of their spirit remains. The allure is undeniable, a shiver, a mystery, a connection to those who came before us. Across the United States, many places claim to be haunted, but one stands above the rest, the Myrtles Plantation. Deep in Louisiana, surrounded by moss-draped oaks, this house is steeped in tragedy and ghostly encounters. Guests and staff have reported phantom footsteps, moving furniture, and mysterious handprints on mirrors. Some have seen spectral figures or felt unseen hands in the night. The Myrtles Plantation, America's most haunted home, remains a legend where the past never truly rests. Among the many spirits said to haunt the Myrtles Plantation, one is more famous than all the others. Her story is the most told, her presence the most sought after. Her name is whispered by tour guides and visitors alike. It is a name that has become inextricably linked with the plantation's tragic history. That name is Chloe. She is the central figure in the Myrtles' most enduring and chilling legend. Her tale is one of betrayal, desperation, and a terrible act of vengeance that went horribly wrong. It is her ghost that is most often reported, her image that is most famously captured. The legend of Chloe begins in the shadows of the antebellum South. She was, the story goes, an enslaved woman who worked in the main house. She served the Woodruff family, who owned the plantation in the early 19th century. The master of the house, Judge Clark Woodruff, is said to have forced Chloe into a relationship. When he grew tired of her, he cast her aside. Fearing she would be sent to work in the fields, a much harder life, Chloe began to eavesdrop on the family's private conversations. She would listen at keyholes, desperate to learn her fate and protect her position in the household. One day she was caught. The judge, enraged by her spying, ordered a brutal and immediate punishment. He had one of her ears cut off. To hide her disfigurement, Chloe took to wearing a green turban, which has since become her most recognizable feature in ghostly sightings. Her punishment did not end her desperation. It fueled it. Humiliated and fearful, she devised a plan to win back her master's favor. It was a plan that would have devastating and unforeseen consequences. A plan that would seal her own fate and cast a dark shadow over the Myrtles for centuries to come. This is where the story takes its darkest turn. Chloe decided to bake a birthday cake for one of the Woodruff children. Into the cake, she mixed a small amount of poison from the oleander plant, which grows plentifully on the grounds. Her intention, the legend claims, was not to kill. She only meant to make the family slightly ill so that she could nurse them back to health and become indispensable. But she made a terrible miscalculation. The poison was far more potent than she realized. Her desperate plan for redemption would soon become a catalyst for unimaginable tragedy. Before the first brick was ever laid, the land itself held a presence. Ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss whisper stories of centuries past, of native peoples, colonists, and the rise of plantations. This ground was claimed, divided, and built upon, its beauty shadowed by a history of displacement and slavery. The Myrtles Plantation stands as a haunting reminder where beauty and sorrow linger in the air, and the land remembers all. The story of Laurel Grove begins with General David Bradford, a fugitive from justice, leader of the Whiskey Rebellion, and a man who reinvented himself as a Southern planter. Fleeing Pennsylvania, Bradford found refuge in Louisiana, where he built his estate and named it Laurel Grove. Like all plantations of the era, its prosperity was built on the backs of enslaved people, an enduring shadow over its legacy. Bradford never saw the grand mansion or the legends to come, but his story is the foundation of the Myrtles' haunted past. After General Bradford's death, Laurel Grove passed to his daughter Sarah Matilda Bradford, who married Clark Woodruff. Their family's story is marked by tragedy. Yellow fever claimed Sarah, 2 children, and Clark himself. The plantation then passed to Mary Octavia and her husband Ruffin Stirling. Stirling transformed the estate, creating the grand mansion known as the Myrtles. This grandeur was built on the forced labor of over 100 enslaved people whose suffering shaped the plantation's legacy. The Myrtles Plantation is a place shaped by sorrow. Its grand halls and elegant ironwork were built on the suffering of enslaved people, whose stories are mostly lost to history. The haunting here is not just a single ghost, but the lingering echoes of countless lives marked by hardship and loss. The legacy of sorrow endures in every brick and shadow of this house. The Myrtles' history is filled with owners and tragedy, but its legend is far more personal. Passed down through generations, the story centers on Chloe, an enslaved woman whose name haunts the plantation. Chloe's tale transforms the Myrtles from a historic site into a Gothic tragedy. Her story, whether fact or legend, gives a voice to the voiceless and makes the Myrtles unforgettable. The legend centers on a brutal power imbalance. Judge Clark Woodruff, master of the plantation, held absolute control over Chloe and the other enslaved people. Chloe's life was shaped by his desires, her survival dependent on his favor. As his interest faded, fear and desperation grew. Trapped by the system and his unwanted attention, Chloe's story reveals the psychological torment and constant uncertainty endured by the enslaved, a prison within a prison. Driven by fear of being sent to the fields, Chloe resorted to eavesdropping, a desperate act for survival. She pressed her ear to doors, straining to catch any mention of her fate. Every whispered word could change her life, but being caught was dangerous. Punishment was certain. Still, Chloe felt she had no choice. Eavesdropping became her habit, a risky tool in her fight for control. But secrets are a heavy burden, and sooner or later she was bound to be discovered. The inevitable finally happened. Chloe was caught eavesdropping by Judge Woodruff himself. His fury was swift and brutal. Her ear was cut off as punishment, a mark of shame and warning to others. To hide her disfigurement, Chloe began wearing a green turban, now the most iconic element of her ghostly legend. When people claim to see her ghost at the Myrtles, it's always the woman in the green turban. In the depths of her despair, a desperate plan formed in Chloe's mind. She needed to make herself indispensable to the family, to prove her worth and loyalty in a way that would erase her past transgression. Her plan centered on one of the children's upcoming birthdays. She decided she would bake a special birthday cake. But this would be no ordinary cake. It would be the instrument of her redemption. Her idea was not to harm the family, but to make them slightly ill. She would then be the one to nurse them back to health, using her knowledge of herbal remedies to cure the very sickness she had caused. To achieve this, she turned to the plants growing on the plantation grounds. She chose the oleander, a beautiful flowering shrub with lush green leaves. It is a plant that grows plentifully in the warm Louisiana climate, often used for ornamental purposes. However, beneath its beauty, the oleander is notoriously toxic. Every part of the plant, the leaves, the flowers, the stems, contains powerful cardiac glycosides. Ingesting even a small amount can cause severe illness, and in larger doses can be fatal. Chloe, according to the legend, only intended to use a very small, controlled amount of the crushed leaves in her cake batter. Her intention was to induce a mild sickness, perhaps a fever or an upset stomach, something she could easily manage and cure. By becoming the family's savior, she hoped to win back the judge's favor and secure her position in the household forever. It was a terribly risky gamble, a plan born of a mind pushed to the brink by fear and humiliation. She was playing with fire, using a potent poison in a desperate attempt to manipulate her circumstances. She baked the cake, carefully mixing in the toxic ingredient, her heart no doubt pounding with a mixture of hope and terror. The fateful day arrived. The birthday cake, beautifully decorated, was presented to the family. The children, excited for the celebration, ate it eagerly. Sarah Woodruff, the judge's wife, also had a piece. Judge Woodruff himself happened to be away or did not partake. Chloe watched, waiting for the first signs of the mild illness she had planned, but she had made a catastrophic miscalculation. Whether she used too much of the poison or the children were more susceptible than she realized, the effect was not mild. It was swift, violent, and deadly. Her desperate plan for redemption had gone horribly, tragically wrong. The birthday celebration turned to horror with shocking speed. Not long after the cake was eaten, the first signs appeared, not mild discomfort, but violent sickness. The oleander poison began its deadly work. Children Sarah and James were the first to succumb, their laughter turning to cries. Panic swept the house. Chloe, the architect of this disaster, watched in terror as her desperate act brought only devastation and sealed her own fate. While her children were lost quickly, their mother, Sarah Woodruff, clung to life. She lay in her bed, ravaged by the poison, drifting in and out of consciousness. The house staff tended to her, their faces grim, knowing there was little they could do. In the quiet of the sick room, Sarah would have been consumed by a grief that was almost as potent as the poison itself. She was a mother who had just witnessed the unspeakable horror of her own children dying before her very eyes. Her final hours were not peaceful. They were a torment of physical agony and, honestly, unimaginable emotional pain. According to the legend, it was in these final lucid moments that Sarah made a heartbreaking request. She knew she was dying. She knew her children were gone. The story tells that she instructed the household staff to bring a large mirror into her room and place it at the foot of her bed. She wanted to be able to see her children, to watch for their spirits as she passed from this world into the next. She believed that they might appear to her, that their ghostly forms might offer some comfort in her final lonely moments. It was the last desperate wish of a dying mother. This mirror became a powerful object in the plantation's lore. It is said that the staff, following her wishes, covered the mirror after her death, as was the custom of the time. This was done to prevent the souls of the dead from being trapped within the glass. However, the story claims that in the chaos and grief that followed, they forgot to cover the mirror immediately. They only remembered after Sarah Woodruff had already passed away while gazing into its reflective surface. This oversight, this small mistake made in a moment of great sorrow, would have profound and lasting consequences for the house. The legend insists that because the mirror was not covered in time, the spirits of Sarah and her children became trapped within it. It ceased to be a simple piece of furniture and became a vessel for their tormented souls. This mirror hangs in the house to this day, a silent witness to the tragedy and a focal point for much of the paranormal activity reported at the Myrtles. Visitors often speak of seeing strange shapes or figures within its glass. They report seeing small handprints appear on the surface, fingerprints of children who died so long ago, a chilling reminder of a mother's last wish. Judge Clark Woodruff was not present when the tragedy unfolded. The legend states he was away on business, a fortunate absence that saved him from the poisoned cake. He returned home to an unimaginable scene of devastation. He arrived not to the happy sounds of his family, but to a house cloaked in a heavy shroud of mourning. He was met with the news that 2 of his children were dead and his wife was gone, all victims of a sudden and mysterious illness. His world, the life he had built at the Myrtles, had been shattered in a single afternoon. His grief and rage must have been immense. The shock would have quickly turned to suspicion. 3 members of his family, all perfectly healthy, did not simply drop dead at the same time. Foul play was the only logical explanation. The judge, a man of the law, would have immediately launched an investigation. He would have questioned every member of the household staff, his mind racing to find the source of the tragedy. Who could have done such a thing? Who would have wanted to harm his wife and innocent children? The atmosphere in the house would have been thick with fear and accusation as the master searched for answers. Chloe must have been terrified. She had to stand by and watch the judge's furious grief, knowing that she was the cause of it all. Every question he asked, every grieving roar that echoed through the halls, would have been like a knife in her heart. She was trapped in a web of her own making, her terrible secret weighing down on her with every passing moment. The guilt, combined with the fear of discovery, would have been an unbearable burden. She saw the man she had once feared and later tried to win over, completely broken by her actions. There was no turning back. The search for the culprit would not have taken long. In the close-knit community of a plantation, secrets were difficult to keep. Other enslaved people, perhaps fearing they would all be punished for the crime, may have pointed the finger at Chloe. Perhaps someone had seen her gathering the oleander leaves, or maybe the pressure of the judge's interrogation simply became too much to bear. The truth, in one way or another, was bound to come out. The judge's terrible return marked the final act for Chloe. Her fate was now in the hands of the very man whose family she had destroyed. The immense pressure and the weight of her guilt finally became too much for Chloe to bear. The legend does not specify exactly how the truth was revealed, but it culminates in her confession. Whether she was betrayed by her fellow enslaved people or broke down under the judge's relentless questioning, she admitted her role in the tragedy. She would have tried to explain her intentions, to make them understand that she never meant to kill anyone. She would have spoken of her fear, of her punishment, and of her desperate plan to make them sick only so she could nurse them back to health and win back favor. Her pleas for understanding and mercy would have fallen on deaf ears. To Judge Woodruff, a man consumed by grief and rage, her explanation would have been meaningless. His wife and children were dead. The distinction between intending to make them sick and intending to kill them was irrelevant. From his perspective, Chloe was a murderer who had robbed him of everything he held dear. In the brutal justice system of the antebellum South, an enslaved person who caused the death of her owner's family could expect no mercy. There would be no trial, no jury, only a swift and final verdict delivered by the master. The legend then takes a dramatic and violent turn. The story claims that Judge Woodruff did not carry out the punishment himself. Instead, the other enslaved people on the plantation, terrified of the master's wrath, took matters into their own hands. They feared that the judge might punish them all for Chloe's actions. To prove their own loyalty and distance themselves from her crime, they became her executioners. They dragged her from the house, a desperate mob acting out of self-preservation. Chloe's own community, the people she lived and worked alongside, turned against her in a final, tragic betrayal. They took her down to a nearby tree, and there they carried out their own form of justice. Chloe was hanged, her life ending in the most brutal and public way imaginable. Her body was then cut down, weighted with stones, and thrown into the nearby Mississippi River. This was done to ensure her spirit could never return to the house to haunt them. It was a final, desperate attempt to erase her from the plantation, to wash away the stain of her crime. But her story would not be so easily silenced. Her tragic end was not an ending at all, but the true beginning of her ghostly legend. Chloe's execution didn't end her story at the Myrtles. Her spirit, marked by the green turban, became the plantation's most feared ghost. Residents soon reported chilling encounters, her shadow on the veranda, footsteps in the night, and sorrowful cries echoing through the halls. Chloe, powerless in life, now wielded a terrifying influence in death, blamed for every unexplained event. The legend of her vengeance grew, overshadowing the plantation's real tragedies and giving a face to its suffering. Whether fact or fiction, Chloe's tale endures, her restless spirit forever haunting the Myrtles. The memory of injustice lingers, embodied in the woman in the green turban. As the Myrtles changed hands, its haunted reputation only deepened. Families whispered of phantom footsteps, heavy boots swishing skirts, and a baby's cry drifting from the empty nursery. Objects moved on their own, beds rumpled as if by unseen children, and doors slammed without warning. Residents learned to live with the constant presence of the past, some fleeing, others adapting. These private stories, passed from owner to owner, built the foundation of the Myrtles' haunted legacy. The house was never just old, it was alive with echoes of those who never left. Living at the Myrtles meant sharing your home with the ghosts of history. The Grand Foyer's mirror is the Myrtles' most infamous haunted object. Legend claims it trapped the souls of Sarah Woodruff and her children, and visitors report child-sized handprints appearing on its glass. Shadowy figures and sorrowful faces are glimpsed in its depths, leaving viewers with a profound sense of loss. Paranormal investigators have recorded cold spots, strange voices, and unexplained phenomena around the mirror. The Mirror of Souls remains the plantation's dark heart, a portal to its tragic past. Some reflections, it seems, reveal more than just the present. The Grand Staircase is the stage for the Myrtles' most dramatic hauntings. William Drew Winter's death is replayed nightly. Stumbling footsteps, a final thud on the 17th step, and a lingering cold spot. Chloe's apparition is sometimes seen on the landing, while shadowy figures dart up and down the stairs. Visitors report icy touches and sudden pushes, as if the boundary between worlds thins on these steps. The staircase connects not just floors, but the living and the dead. Every ascent is a journey through history's lingering sorrow. Here, the past refuses to rest. As the Myrtles legend spread, paranormal investigators flocked to the plantation. Armed with tape recorders, cameras, and EMF meters, they sought scientific proof of the haunting. They captured ghostly voices, mysterious orbs, and chilling personal experiences, each finding fueling the legend. Their reports transformed the Myrtles from local curiosity to national phenomenon. The house became a proving ground for ghost hunters and a magnet for media attention. The search for evidence only deepened the mystery. Television crews brought the Myrtles' haunting to a global audience, making its legends famous. The 1992 Chloe photograph, a spectral figure caught on film, became iconic, debated by skeptics and believers alike. Media exposure turned the plantation's ghosts into celebrities, their stories retold and embellished for new generations. Tour guides now share tales featured on TV, and visitors arrive hoping to witness the supernatural. The line between history and legend blurs with every broadcast. The Myrtles' hauntings have become a living phenomenon, forever captured on film. Its ghosts, once private fears, are now part of popular culture. Today, the Myrtles Plantation thrives as a unique business, embracing its title as America's most haunted home. Visitors from around the world come for ghost tours, overnight stays, and classic Southern cuisine at the Carriage House restaurant. Guests can sleep in famously haunted rooms or join tours led by guides who share chilling legends and history. The Myrtles has transformed its dark past into a must-see destination where history and the supernatural meet. To understand the Myrtles, you must first feel the atmosphere of St. Francisville. This charming town with its preserved homes and moss-draped oaks feels like a step back in time. The air is thick with magnolias and stories. Ghost stories and history linger everywhere, in cemeteries, old homes, and quiet streets. The vibe of St. Francisville perfectly sets the stage for the mysteries of the Myrtles. Even in the 21st century, the strange occurrences at the Myrtles have not ceased. Tourists, staff, and guests continue to report eerie encounters, phantom footsteps, mysterious handprints, and chilling presences. Modern technology has only fueled the legend, with visitors capturing unexplained orbs and whispers on their phones. The plantation remains a place where history, folklore, and the supernatural converge, ensuring its ghostly reputation endures for generations. Why does the story of the Myrtles Plantation endure? For over 2 centuries, Chloe's legend has captivated us, not for its accuracy, but for its emotional power. It condenses the tragedy of slavery into a personal story of desperation and injustice. The green turban, the poisoned cake, the handprints, these images linger. Chloe's story gives a voice to the voiceless, ensuring we remember the human cost behind the legend. The Myrtles Plantation stands as a testament to the enduring power of ghost stories in American culture. These tales are more than entertainment. They help us process a complex past, binding communities and shaping identity. The legend of the Myrtles is now inseparable from the place itself, drawing visitors from around the world. As long as we share these stories, the echoes of the past and its ghosts will never truly fade.